I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate. We think too much and feel too little. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness. Without these qualities, life will be violent. And all will be lost. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die. Dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Will return to the people. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, to do away with greed. Now let us fight to free the world, to fulfill the promise. Let us all unite.
Welcome, folks, to the Corporation Nation Radio Show. I'm Clint Richardson. And today was a very good day, actually. Friday the 21st of February. I got the chance to go back to the place I was working for a while, and I still every once in a while get a chance to work on the farm. It's actually an organic farm, probably one of the few in Utah. There are a few out there, and in fact, some of them, have raw milk still and really good grass-fed beef and stuff like that. We even have a little goat farm around called Drake's that sells raw goat milk. Good stuff, too. Cheese and stuff like that. But this particular farm is one I've talked about before because it's, it's one that the government has slowly been taking piece by piece through eminent domain. And unfortunately, I can't get the farmer, who's an older gentleman, to really do anything about it. He's got the perfect opportunity to just really give it to him. Because it was a federally granted estate. He even had a federal right-of-way, which is unheard of nowadays. But unfortunately, he's just basically allowing the state to come in, or actually it's the city, and take what it wants. Take the frontage road property and just sell it right from under him and make a huge profit by stealing his land. They stole some land to build a school. They stole some land to build a senior center, and now they're about to steal more land. Before the prices go up, which they have been. Prices here have actually doubled almost in the last year and a half. It's amazing. Which probably points to a bubble bursting here pretty soon, because I can't imagine how that's going to sustain itself again. But I'm always joyed because around this time of the year is when the lambs are born. So there's about 20 lambs that they have, and they're so cute. They're in the stage where they're hopping around and they're discovering new jumps, and when one sees one jump, the other one imitates it, and so you have all these acrobatic little lambs. They're so cute. Unfortunately, we had one that... One is he's a downer. He couldn't stand, and we're trying to rehabilitate him. So I got to, it's one of those joys in life. I got to actually hold the lamb, tuck his feet under and bottle feed him, or try to bottle feed him anyway. Make him suck on the plastic teat from a Coke bottle, and it's not Coke, of course. It's milk, but just adorable thing. Hopefully the little guy will make it. We'll know in the next day or two, I suppose. He's really weak, but we're going to hope for him. While I was there, I was talking to my buddy. And there's cows and horses and big sheep, of course, as well. Well, while I was there, I was talking to my buddy, and he was telling me that he heard on the radio about the Obamacare thing, and I think it was Glenn Beck that he just happened to be listening to, and Glenn Beck was talking about the congressman who stood up in Congress, and when Obama was up in Congress telling him about Obamacare, and it was the congressman that got up and said, "Liar!" real loud in Congress, which was actually kind of funny, but of course he got a lot of flack about it, and because Obama was literally lying through his teeth, and he said that, quote-unquote, illegal aliens folks who are not citizens of the United States will be able to get Obamacare. Now, this is not new news. It actually came out maybe for the last week or so, but I thought it interesting to bring up because when if one lie is told about one thing, how can you possibly trust anything else that's said by someone? But here's basically what was reported, and this was from the Examiner.com. Obama lied. Illegal aliens are now being enrolled in Obamacare. Now, if you're going to ask me about what an illegal alien is, that's a whole other topic, and the whole concept is actually fairly convoluted because, of course, being a United States citizen is, as we've talked about before, it's really not what we think it is. So these people who really want to be citizens of that corporation, I don't know why they would. For one thing, they're getting better benefits than citizens. So it's funny. On September 9th, 2009, while addressing Congress, President Obama told the nation that the Affordable Care Act, better known as Obamacare, would not cover illegal aliens, saying the reforms I am proposing would not apply to those who are here illegally. However, just as the now infamous Obama promise of if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor has been proven to be false, it appears that this president's claim that not only citizens could be eligible for taxpayer-subsidized coverage is yet another lie. You see, they went to the Spanish section. This is not in the English section. In the Spanish section, when we transcribe that, in California's Obamacare enrollment website, known as Covered California, quote unquote, has a page entitled, to translate, I'm not going to go into Spanish, but fear not if you are undocumented and want to enroll your family in health insurance. Again, the Spanish version called Covered California, the Spanish translation site, quote, fear not if you are undocumented and want to enroll your family in health insurance. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say it's good or bad. I don't know why, and I got to be honest, as we've discussed before, health insurance is actually limiting your rights to get coverage because anybody, no matter where you're from, can go into a hospital and get emergency care. That's what nonprofits are for. So literally, insurance can actually prevent you from getting your emergency treated, believe it or not. But, okay, fear not if you are an undocumented and want to enroll your family in health insurance. That's interesting. That does mean that Obama was kind of lying. But there's no perjury anymore. There's no treason. Potential illegal alien applicants are assured that none of their information will ever be turned over to federal immigration authorities. Page states, according to the laws and implementing regulations, the information provided by individuals for coverage cannot be used for purposes other than ensuring the efficient functioning of the insurance market or administration of the program, or to verify certain eligibility determinations, including verification of the immigration status of these people. Internal U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement memo paints a different picture. The memo states, consistent with the ACA, ICE does not use information about such individuals or members of their household that is obtained for purposes of determining eligibility for such coverage, as the basis for pursuing a civil immigration enforcement action against such individuals or members of their household. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll come back after the break and get into this, but I'm going to talk about E-Verify. I don't know if you've heard about E-Verify, but most ridiculous thing ever. We'll talk about that when we get back.
The mission was successfully completed. Reality.
Welcome back, folks, to the Corporation Nation. I'm Clint Richardson. Give a shout out to the chat room. Hello, chat room. CorporationNation.chatango.com. We had this battle in Utah. Now, unfortunately, Utah, it's kind of a boondoggle here, because when the church, the Mormon church, the Vatican here, comes out and says something is good, it's basically, okay, it's over. It's a done deal. When the church supports something, basically it becomes law. And that's very unfortunate, because one of the things it supported was called E-Verify. Now, E-Verify is a national program implemented uniformly in the states. And, of course, the useful idiots all voted for the passage of this on the concept, because it was sold as something that would actually limit immigration that is quote-unquote illegal. In other words, it would limit the jobs being given to illegal immigrants. The idea was to preserve those jobs for the people of Utah. Well, unfortunately, along with the E-Verify came several other things that people were fooled for. And now Utah is actually what's called a sanctuary state. And if you can get here, if you can illegally travel through the United States and get to Utah, you're in a safe zone. You won't be deported. You can get a permit to work, actually. Can't remember if it's an I-9 form or what it is. But basically, as long as you can get here, anyone from any country, we're not just talking about Mexico here. We're talking about Canada. We're talking about Russia. We're anywhere. Doesn't matter. Let's not just pick on the poor South American, right, or Central America. Understand now when you go into most restaurants, especially the bigger chains, this is why I don't go to a lot of these restaurants. I try to find sort of mom and pop restaurants whenever I can. They have this thing in the window, and it says we participate in E-Verify. Maybe you've seen it. It's got the American flag on it, and it's got a bunch of silhouetted people, which I don't know what that's supposed to be. I guess all nationalities. And it says if you have the right to work, don't let anyone take it away. Now, this is a flyer that is distributed by the Social Security Administration. Again, what I call the mark of the beast, the number of the beast, if you will. International Social Security Administration. Remember that it's in over 130 countries now, and it's not just an American thing. In fact, China has the same exact program we do called Social Security of China. And it's also by the U.S. Department of what else? Homeland Security. I'm just going to read this flyer for you, because this is what the voters of Utah got fooled into voting for, thinking, even after we were on the local AM station just railing against this, telling people, look, people, it's from Homeland Security, it's federal, it's from Social Security. Come on, folks. We warned them, and still to no avail. It says this SWA, and I can't remember what SWA is, but it basically is a participating member in E-Verify. So it's talking about the business. This SWA will provide the Social Security Administration, the SSA, and, if necessary, the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, with information from each applicant's Form I-9 to confirm work authorization. Remember, the Social Security and mark of the beast, can't work without the mark, right? Can't work without the number. Important. If the government cannot confirm that you are authorized to work, this SWA or this store, this restaurant, is required to provide you written instructions and an opportunity to contact the Social Security Administration or DHS before taking adverse action against you, including terminating your employment. All right, it says, notice, federal law requires all employers to verify the identity and employment eligibility of all persons hired to work in the United States. Well, there's that in the United States thing again, along with the word person. Yes, this SWA, this restaurant, And employers may not use E-Verify to re-verify current employees, and may not limit or influence the choice of documents presented for use on the Form I-9. If you believe that your SWA has violated its responsibilities under this program or has discriminated against you during the verification process based upon your national origin or citizenship status, please call the Office of Special Counsel for Immigration-Related Affair Employment Practices. Now, we go to the next page. This is going to, keep in mind, this is on virtually every restaurant, anywhere that's a chain, basically, agrees to be part of E-Verify, right? This is ridiculous. This is what it says, and people walk past this thing, don't read it. Every day, in and out, everybody walks past this thing, has no idea what it says. I don't know if it gives them comfort. It says, if you have the right to work, don't let anyone take it away. Here's what it says, and this is why we rallied against it, because this is exactly what we warned against. If you have a legal right to work in the United States, there are laws to protect you against discrimination in the workforce. You should know that no employer can deny you a job or fire you because of your national origin. Did you hear that, folks? No employer can deny you a job or fire you because of your national origin. Okay? We're not talking about race, folks. This has nothing to do with race. This is where you're from. Are you here legally or illegally? And we'll prove that by continuing to read. Unless mandated by law or government contract, employers cannot require you to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident or refuse any legal acceptable documents. One more time. Unless mandated by law or government contract, employers cannot require you to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident or refuse any legally acceptable documents. What's it referring to? Well, again, it's a sanctuary state. You come here, get here illegally, you get a little work permit, they cannot refuse you based on the fact that you're truly an illegal immigrant. In other words, they're going to pay $6 an hour instead of $10 or $12 an hour, basically. And that's what's happening. And what's funny, have you noticed that the trend now is that people who came here legally and went through the naturalization process are now losing their jobs to illegals? How ironic is that? People who actually went through the whole process, even the ones that came here illegally and went through the process to become legal, now they're like, well, now I have rights. Now I'm privileged. Now I want more money. And the people who are now coming illegally are beating them out of their jobs because they'll take less pay. How funny is that? What a messed up thing this is. If any of these things have happened to you, you may have a valid charge of discrimination that can be filed with the OSC, Office of Special Counsel for Immigration-Related Affair Employment Practices. You can actually sue me as an employer for not wanting to hire you because you came here illegally, got a work permit, and are demanding the right to work. Welcome to Utah. We'll be back. Nation. Yeah, let me read this again just to get this into your heads, because again, this is what the people of Utah were fooled into voting for. Even after we protested and tried to warn people. Again, it says, if you have a legal right to work in the United States, there are laws that protect you against discrimination in the workplace. You should know that. No employer can deny you a job or fire you because of your national origin. Unless mandated by law or government contract, employers cannot require you to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident or refuse any legally acceptable documents. Now, it goes on to say, if any of these things have happened to you, you may have a valid charge of discrimination that can be filed with the OSC. Please contact the OSC for assistance in your own language. Can you imagine? Oh, I've been discriminated against. I've only been in America for 2 weeks. I got this work permit. I can't speak English, but this guy won't hire me. Now, this has, please keep in mind, this, forget what this is. What this is dealing with is taking away the rights of someone who has a business. Unfortunately, if you're incorporated, you're basically a government corporation. You're going to have to do it, or you're going to be blackballed, just like the Bible says. Just like the Bible says, just like Title 42, Section 666 says. Go read it, folks. Section 666 of Title 42. It's all about how it's all about child support and how everything can be taken away. It's very interesting. But, I digress, because this is really about taking away the rights of an employer to hire who he wants, let alone someone who speaks English. Please contact the Office for Special Counsel of Immigration-Related Unfair Employment Practices for assistance in your own language. Wow. That's just funny. Ah, boy. Or you can write to the U.S. Department of Justice. You know, the U.S. Department of Justice has a civil rights division. Civil rights, one of the worst things that can possibly happen to people. And, of course, it's touted as just this wonderful, wonderful thing. But, see, civil rights actually basically makes everybody equal in the fact, not that they are actually equal, but that they are equally punished under the law. That they are equally subject to the extortion of exaction. You see, it's not equality like, oh, we've won a victory, we've become free men. No. That's not what equality is, folks. Don't be daft. Equality is equal protection under the law. What does that mean? Remember what protection is? Remember how Bert and I have been tearing that down? Protection is basically punishment. Taxes, fees, fines, imprisonment, those are protection, you see. Those are your rights. Those are your civil rights. Very important to have civil rights, because then you're basically insured to be a good little slave. It's just everything is so backwards. It's incredible. But, so what I suggest is that, it was a representative, Joe Wilson, Republican from South Carolina, who stood up, and I don't know if he stood up, but he yelled out real loud as Obama was saying this in 2009. He said, "You lie, Mr. President." And afterwards, he had to apologize profusely to the White House for shouting as Obama told Congress that Obamacare would never cover illegal immigrants. So don't you think that maybe people should be flooding his office with flowers, or at least giving him his due? Don't you think Obama should actually now be apologizing and profusely to Representative Joe Wilson? I don't know. Just a thought, but it's pretty funny, though. Funny how things catch up to you when you lie and you try to carry that lie and many others at the same time. Eventually you're going to lose track. Eventually, the evidence is going to catch up with you. Well, enough of that. I wanted to get back to my little rant about the emergency powers of the president, because I just can't tell you how important this is. This is, I mean, when you read the Senate report, 93-549, which is basically in the year 1973, which was basically the Senate saying, the first sentence says, since March the 9th, 1933, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. When you understand what that means, my God, it means you're literally under the powers of a dictator. Now we read this section, and I want to read this again. 12 U.S. Code, Section 95A. This is short of maybe a few other sections in U.S. Code. This is one of the most important sections that you can get under your belt, because once you understand this, it's mind-boggling that this is the case, and it's still in code today, which lets you know that all of this is still in effect. The emergency powers, martial law, and all of this stuff. And this directly affects Title 50. If you go to Title 50, national defense and all that, this is where all of these things come from. All the homeland security and everything is based on this. The fact that the president is dictator. The fact that the Constitution, which I'm not too happy about, but at least it restricts. But when you have emergency status and when you have, again, the law of necessity, necessity knows no law. Anything goes, which is why we have executive orders and presidential directives and all the crazy things we always complain about. But we never really know the origin. What's happening? We have no idea. We have a dictator. It's hilarious. Really. 12 U.S. Code, Section 95B. 95B or 95A. The actions, regulations, rules, licenses, orders, as in executive orders, and proclamations heretofore and hereafter taken, promulgated, made, or issued by the President of the United States or the Secretary of the Treasury. This had to do with the Banking Act. That was what the emergency was declared on. Since March the 4th, 1933, pursuant to the amended 12 U.S. Code, Section 95A, are hereby approved and confirmed. Now, and I know we talked about this, and I know I explained it, but I want to tell you again. Okay? How do you know that you have a dictator? Well, when Congress gives their permission to the president through the enabling legislation, 12 U.S. Code, everything the president does heretofore or hereafter, that means since a certain time, actually since March the 4th, 1933, and this was passed on March 9th, 1933, so those 5 days, heretofore and hereafter, that means after March 9th, 1933, are already approved and confirmed. What does that mean? That's why the president can issue an executive order which completely bypasses Congress, because Congress gave him permission. And this is the other aspect of this. We have to understand this. My God, do we have to understand this. The United States, the district, the corporation that was created by the Charter, what we call the Charter of Freedoms. Remember, freedom is to obey the law. This is a joke. It's the cruel joke of America. The use of the word freedom as a legal term. Go look it up. Any dictionary. Go to the law section. You'll find what freedom means is that you must obey the law to be free. You're free to do what you want as long as the law lets you. Otherwise, you can't do crap. You have to have a license, permission to do things that are illegal. We'll be back, folks.
Wake up, wake up, wake up and look around you. We're lost in space and the earth is your home.
Hi, neighbor. Welcome again to this neighborhood. I'd like to show you something. You know what this is? Or maybe if I press this button. Imagine every person that you see is somewhat different from every other person in the world.
All right, folks, welcome back. Now, why do I repeat this? I've talked about this before. I've talked about it, Monday or Tuesday, and I'm talking about it again today. Why do I repeat myself? Because this subject should be the only thing people are talking about. It really should. As far as politics goes, and as far as the president that you believe you elect, but not really, through the Electoral College. Oh, yeah, that's not the voters. Never mind. But the only thing that people should be talking about, really, is the fact that the president, when elected, becomes dictator. That the Constitution is virtually suspended when it comes to the office of president, the executive. Of course, that's the enforcement arm of the law. That's the problem, you see. The enforcer of the law is the dictator. He's the one with the army. This should be the only thing that's being talked about is the state of national emergency. Because without it, without the ability that Congress allows, by the way, this is a congressional thing. Only Congress can stop it. The president, unless I'm president, the president's not going to just come out and give away all of his power. It's a bloodline. They're not going to do that unless you can somehow break the mold and get someone who's actually one of us in the presidency, which is pretty much an impossibility. Because this United States wasn't set up for quote unquote us, the people, the little people. It was set up for the capitalized people, the people who signed the Constitution, and for the continuity of their progeny. It's actually written in the Constitution if you read it real carefully. But you got to know who the people were. There's a reason these words are capitalized in the Constitution. The people are the people who signed the Constitution and their blood, their progeny. I'd like to get some folks on here. See, the problem is people that have proved this and have become something other than what we are. I don't even know how to explain that. The people who have actually proven this in court and actually utilized it, they don't talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to tell you how they went in front of the Supreme Court and actually proved that they were of the bloodline and now celebrate a privileged life because of it. I wish I could get someone on here to talk about that, but I can't because most people out there don't want to be bothered. They want to do their own thing, or they come on and they want to be a guru and they want to charge you thousands of dollars to teach you the remedies. It's like, it drives me crazy. Anyway, now we discussed earlier in the week that a national emergency is defined by Black's Law Dictionary, which is case law. It's how the courts define it. A state of national crisis, a situation demanding immediate and extraordinary national or federal action. Congress has made little or no distinction between a state of national emergency and a state of war. So again, we're in a state of peace, but as with a national emergency, we're at war with some obtuse thing, an emergency. What's an emergency? One of them is terrorism. That's a good one. How about the flu? That was a national emergency. We're at war with the flu. Therefore, we can quarantine you. We can do anything that's in our executive orders. We can kill you, actually, if you are a contagious flu victim and refuse to be quarantined. In other words, put into a camp. All right? That's the power of a national emergency. That's why these folks aren't going to get rid of it. Congress isn't interested in getting rid of it, okay? Because the people don't know about it, don't understand it. Every talk show host I hear talking about The executive orders have no idea why they exist, why are they coming from. I just want to wring their necks because, of course, that means all the people listening also have no idea. These parrots, patriot parrots, I call them. Anyway, so you got Congressman James M. Beck speaking from Congressional Record, easy to verify, 1933. He says it means when Congress declares a national emergency, there is no Constitution. Well, they gave the president the power to declare a national emergency. As we read, everything the president does since 1933 is approved. Okay, he can declare any emergency he wants. He just has to give Congress requires a note every year that says, I'm re-establishing the emergency. And right there, every president since has been re-establishing the emergencies as needed and declaring new ones as needed, depending on which emergency statutes they want to, not statutes, executive orders and presidential directives they want to declare. Tyranny, complete tyranny, and we don't even recognize it. It's pathetic. He also says there is no longer any workable constitution to keep the Congress within the limits of its constitutional powers when the emergency is declared. This is a congressman, for God's sake, and this is out of the Congressional Record. He goes on. And you know, if you actually look at all of the the presidential executive orders that have been passed, you'll find every single thing that this man said in 1933 has been put into the power of the president. It's all been put into a status where it can be suspended at the drop of a hat. Okay? That's what executive orders are. Listen to this. Here's what he says. Congressman James M. Beck in 1933, talking about the national emergency and what's going to happen. He says, this vast range of powers taken together confer enough authority to rule the country without reference to normal constitutional process. Under the powers delegated by these statutes, the president may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad. So far, all this is already happening. Institute martial law. We talked about the Labor Code. We talked about how that applies, the military bases. We're already under martial law. We just don't know it. Until we become uncivil, that is. Seize and control all transportation and communication. Regulate the operation of private enterprise. Well, we just read E-Verify. Restrict travel. Well, again, we have the no-fly list. We have the restrictions all over the place. And in a plethora of particular ways, control the lives of all American citizens. All of this is law. Since 1933, the president, again, all right, I want to make this clear, folks. The office of president does not change. The only thing that changes is the man. The blood stays the same. When President Obama obtained the office of president, he obtained the corporation soul that was once traded as George W. Bush. Before that, Clinton. Before that, Bush. Before that, Carter. Before that, Reagan. The office changes souls, basically. The blood stays the same. Do we need to go back to our genealogical research and read what Burke's Peerage says, that the president with the person with the most royal blood always obtains the presidency? Why did Al Gore subsume and say, okay, I give up? Bush can have it? Because he had less blood. It's written in mainstream news, for God's sake. Okay? The office is a corporation. It gets passed on to the next blood relation. That's it. That's what the president is. That's why the Constitution was created, to allow the family to succeed in business. That's what the Constitution was. We are not the people. We're the people, capital, small letter. The people, again, is a very general term. When you put man into a nation, you call it peopling. Or they used to call it peopling. When you build the population, you call it peopling, or verb people. In other words, to inhabit. But the people of the Constitution was not referring to us. We are common. We are common blood. We don't count. We are the chattel. All right, folks, we'll be back. We'll continue this, take some calls in the next hour.
Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel. Who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are men. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful. Let us use that power to make this life a wonderful adventure. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world to do away with greed. A world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Do not despair. The hate of men will pass and dictators die. And the power they took from the people will return to the people. Let us all unite.
Welcome back, folks, Corporation Nation. I'm Clint Richardson, your host. Today we were talking about the worst possible situation we could be in, which is the situation we've been in since 1933, which is the constitutional ability of the president to be dictator according to Congress. Yes, that's right. That's what we live. In fact, Senate Report 93-549. Why don't you guys look that up and go read it? Because it's a very fascinating document. Back in the 70s, they took a look at the national emergencies and decided that they weren't going to change the fact that they could be pronounced. Of course not, because that gives this corporation so much power. What they did decide is that, well, we're going to make the president re-verify and resubmit the national emergency each year. So you can't just declare one and let it go for many, many years without redeclaring it. That was their conclusion, basically. Here's what they say in that report. It says, quote, Senate Report 93-549 again. In the introduction, it says, quote, a majority of the people of the United States have lived all their lives under emergency rule. For 40 years, freedoms and governmental procedures guaranteed by the Constitution have, in varying degrees, been abridged by laws brought into force by states of national emergency. And, in the United States, actions taken by the government in times of great crisis have, from at least the Civil War, in important ways, shaped the present phenomenon of a permanent state of national emergency. A permanent state of national emergency, folks. That's what we're in. That's what we've been in. And remember, when we talked about the Civil War with no ending, okay, where they even mentioned this on the government website, that the Civil War, the reason we didn't end the Civil War is because, again, the United States did not want to recognize the South, the Confederacy, as a nation, because if it did so, it would have to provide for it, give it rights, and treat it like a war like losers of a war, basically. So by not acknowledging that the nation ever existed called the Confederacy, no war crimes, nothing. I mean, they could do anything they want, and basically they did. Treated them like crap. Forced them to put people into office that the people didn't vote for. Forced the states to go against their own constitutions. Forced the states to redo their constitutions under what is called the Enabling Acts. You can find those for your own state, especially out here in the West. The Enabling Acts are what the states had to agree with, the territories had to agree with, before they could become a state. And it basically says the United States owns you. Congratulations. So, I mean, when you read this, for the first time, you're reading it out of congressional record. It's one thing to read what Eugene Schroeder wrote in his War Powers Act, which is what I'm reading from a revamped version that I've been creating along the way, trying to verify everything that's said in this, make sure everything's still accurate, maybe make a documentary out of it. But it's another thing to actually pull these things up and read them in U.S. code. Okay, that is where your heart actually sinks. When you read the law and you discover that all of this is actually true. Really, really, really frightening. Worse than any possible dictator that you could imagine, because, again, it's under the law of necessity. It's purely constitutional. It's all legal. Because what does legal mean? Legal is just a way of saying unlawful with permission, right? Killing is unlawful, but if you have a license to kill, well, suddenly it's legal, right? Rape could even be legal if you want it to be. Now, how did this happen? Well, let's go back to 1933 again. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he's inaugurated as president of the United States March the 4th of 1933. That sounds familiar. What did he say during his inaugural address? Now, keep in mind, you're in the throes of the Depression. Things are bad. The money's all messed up. Everything's bad. So here's what he says in his inaugural address. Again, this is record. I'm not just making it up. And he states it very elegantly and convinces it's very convincing. It's even patriotic if you think about it, which is why I'm not a patriot. I am prepared, he says, quote, inaugural address, quote, I am prepared under my constitutional duty. Yeah, that's right. To recommend the measures that a stricken nation in the midst of a stricken world may require. These measures, or such other measures as the Congress may build out of its experience and wisdom, I shall seek within my constitutional authority to bring the speedy adoption. But in the event that the Congress shall fail to take one of these two courses, and in the event that the national emergency is still critical, I shall not evade the clear course of duty that will then confront me. I shall ask the Congress for the one remaining instrument to meet the crisis. What is that one remaining instrument, folks? Quote, broad executive power to wage a war against the emergency. Remember, very little difference between a war and an emergency. The way he says this here, broad executive power to wage a war against the emergency, this is why you could be forced vaccinated if the emergency is the flu or some other government-created, disease. This is why you can be called a terrorist. All they have to do is say you're a terrorist. Since the emergency is terrorism, there's a war against you. All that has to happen is that you're named a terrorist. It's simple as that. I mean, this is nuts. And yet, it goes unknown. It's overshadowed by all this other crap. Gay marriage, for God's sake. Who cares? We're under a tyranny here. We're under a absolute tyranny under a dictator created by Congress. They can end this at any time. We can end all of these tyrannical laws that are created because of this emergency status any time. Just like we can write off the debt any time. The Jubilee. He goes on. Broad executive power to wage a war against the emergency. As great as the power that would be given to me if I were in fact invaded by a foreign foe. There again. What did we say earlier? Congress does not distinguish between a war and a state of emergency. So he says that the emergency of the Great Depression is so powerful that basically it's like being invaded. Martial law, all of that. Just like Congressman Beck warned us about. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right.
With schools, media, money, and meds, we control every aspect of your life through ideological hegemony. But if you think you need guns to stop tyranny, then what you waiting for? We've already stripped you of your liberty, privacy, civil rights, and dignity. You want some more?
It is like a finger pointing away to the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger or you will miss all that heavenly glory.
All right, folks, welcome back.
Empty your mind before.
I gotta tell you, man, I can't stress this enough, man. Of all the things that anybody should be talking about out there, this is it. Prions aside, for the moment, this is everything. This is the whole kit and caboodle, the whole problem with our system of government. Right here, this is it. This is how everything is worked. Now, let's go back. What did Beck say? In 1933, this is what he warned about. Under the powers delegated by these statutes, the president may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute martial law, seize and control all transportation and communication, regulate the operation of private enterprise, restrict travel, and in a plethora of particular ways, control the lives of all American citizens. There it is. What happens when we go look at executive orders that have been created? How about Executive Order 10998? Go look it up. Allows the government to seize all means of transportation, including personal cars, trucks, and vehicles of any kind. What's the fourth plank of the Communist Manifesto? Well, it's confiscation of property. Confiscation of all property of all immigrants and rebels. Executive Order 11310 grants the Department of Justice to institute industrial support, to establish judicial and legislative liaisons, to control all aliens, to operate penal and correctional institutions, and to advise and assist the president. Executive Order 11921 allows FEMA, or actually FEPA, Federal Emergency Preparedness Agency, to take control of all financial institutions in the United States, all banks, and allow government to control the mechanisms of production and distribution of energy sources. Well, guess what? Communist Manifesto Plank number 5 is central bank centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of a national bank. Executive Order 10990 allows government to take over all modes of transportation and control highways and seaports. 10995 allows government to seize all control and communications media. That's internet, radio, television, etc. 10997 allows the government to take over all electrical power, gas, petroleum, fuels, and minerals. 11002 allows the government to take over all airports and aircraft, including commercial aircraft. You starting to get this? Those are all part of Communist Plank number 6. Government control of communications and transportation, centralization of the means of communication. Executive Order 11000 allows the government to mobilize citizens into work brigades under government supervision. Well, that's Communist Plank number 8. Government control of labor, creation of government labor armies. You getting the picture here? Executive order. What? Excuse me. 11002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. 11004 allows the Housing and Finance Authority to relocate communities, build new housing with public funds, to designate public lands and areas to be abandoned, and to establish new locations for populations. Oh, can anyone say Agenda 21? Or how about the 9th plank of the Communist Manifesto? Executive Order 11001 allows the government to take over all health, education, and welfare functions. Did I hear education? Did someone say Common Core? Did someone say the 10th plank of the Communist Manifesto, which is government control of education? Well, there you go. You want some more? I mean, geez. It's right there. Isn't this crazy? Isn't this absolutely nuts when we actually look? Executive Order 12919 is a very important one also. The president would put the United States under total martial law and military dictatorship in case of a declared emergency. You still think this is a joke? You still think this is not important? Well, what did Beck say? Not Glenn Beck. He's a douche. What did Congressman James M. Beck say from Congressional Records? Under the powers designated by these statutes, all these executive orders I just read are possible. And guess what? They've already happened. In a plethora of ways, our lives are completely controlled by the president. Isn't that amazing? Well, what happened after Roosevelt delivered his little speech and said that he's going to use his constitutional authority and powers, if Congress allows him, to wage a war against the emergency, as great as the power that would have been given to him if a foreign foe invaded? Well, the next day, his second day as president of the United States, he called Congress into a special or extraordinary session called Proclamation, or the document that he used to do that was called Proclamation 2038. 2038. Special session of Congress to meet on March the 9th, 1933 at noontime, and at the congressional session he presented an act or a bill to provide relief for the existing national emergency in banking, and of course, as all bills say, for other purposes. Other purposes, sure. That's why everything in Obamacare has nothing to do with Obamacare. Building armies, it's all kinds of things that have nothing to do with health care, because every bill says for other purposes. They can add anything they want. That's why you can put earmarks that have nothing to do with the bill, because the bill is always for other purposes. If there's one thing that they should stop, it's the and for other purposes, so that each bill is only regarding the thing that that bill affects. But, you know, I'm just an idealist. And the enabling portion of the act. Now, keep in mind, does it sound like this thing was created in the few days? No. No, this was a plan, obviously, because this whole thing happened in 5 days. And the enabling portion of the new act, the Banking Act, says, quote, be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that, very importantly, the Congress hereby declares that a serious emergency exists and that it is imperatively necessary speedily to put into effect remedies of uniform national application. Blah, 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 blah. What does it mean when you say imperatively necessary speedily? Remember, if you quote the doctrine of necessity, it means that you are getting rid of the law. The law, necessity knows no law. So for the word necessity to be plucked out of the Constitution and used for the purpose it's being used here, that a serious emergency exists and that it is imperatively necessary speedily to put into effect remedies of uniform national. Basically, they just gave up the whole thing. And that led to the heretofore and hereafter document that basically said Congress approves everything the president's going to do since March the 4th, 1933, and that has never been altered. It's still in the U.S. Code. This is, again, why the president can just, at a whim, create a executive order. We know that he's not writing them. We know that these are very carefully planned things. It's not the point. The office is the point. The office is always going to be the same. The man who inhabits that office is blood. Doesn't matter who's in there. It's the office that counts. And it has nothing to do with left or right, Republican, Democrat. That is for you to fight over, like in a cage match. It has nothing to do with this. We'll be back, folks. We'll take some calls.
And the men who hold high places must be the ones who start to mold a new reality closer to the heart.
Welcome back, folks. Corporation Nation's radio program on a severe rant today, but I think it's pretty important, so I'm going to continue for a couple minutes, then we'll take some calls. I see they're lined up. I just want to say one more thing. I want people to really get this, because remember, this act of March 9th, to wrap this all up, in Title I, Section 1, guess what it says? The act of March 9th. Yes, that's what was created because of this speech, because of the proclamation, the gathered Congress. This is what they created. This is what they voted for, excuse me. What does it say? Title I, Section 1, the actions, regulations, rules, licenses, orders, and proclamations heretofore or hereafter taken, promulgated, made, or issued by the President of the United States or the Secretary of Treasury since March the 4th, 1933, are hereby approved and confirmed. Wow! Where have we heard that before? It took Roosevelt 5 days to become dictator. 5 days, and Congress handed over the entire thing, the entire corporation, creating the CEO. That's what it took, folks. There it is. That became law. Title 12, U.S. Code 95B or 95A. I can't figure that out just by looking at this. But the point, hopefully that brought it full circle. That's how this all really happened. Unbelievable. And remember, made or issued by the President of the United States or the Secretary of Treasury. You want to know why the Federal Reserve and the Treasury is so damn out of control? It's because everything the Secretary of Treasury with the Federal Reserve under it, remember that, everything that the Secretary of Treasury says, is approved without congressional, without need of going through Congress. You see? Isn't that nuts? You wonder why you wonder why gold was confiscated? You wonder why we went to a fiat currency? You want to know why the United States is funding every bank in the world? You want to know? It's because this Secretary of Treasury has carte blanche to do so. Is it that difficult? I just want to read one more thing. We'll take calls, okay? Maybe you'll recognize this. Well, maybe you won't. I don't know. See if you recognize this. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. And the people should naturally and politically expect as among themselves that their chosen form of government does not harm or does no harm to the people and, most importantly, to their property, both collectively and individually, as natural law so dictates. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator, and that this be the highest form of law over that of man. The United States is man, it's not God. Whatever that belief be to each individual, so long as natural law be protected and practiced within with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness have all been taken away under executive order. With the snap of a finger, the president can declare them null and void. Yes, that's your life. Are we getting this? I mean, it's a very important thing. But when long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, that sounds about what we got. It is their right, it is their duty. In other words, it's your right and your duty, folks, to throw off such government, specifically all contractual obligations. Oh, we've talked about that before. To it, and to its own monopolized monetary debt system. Okay, I'm just adding that. Sorry. And to provide new guards for their future security. I wrote my own Declaration of Independence. It's called a New Declaration of Independence for Free Men. You can find that on my blog. It's what I intend to actually hand deliver to my friends in Washington, D.C. I'm actually going to hand deliver that into Washington, D.C. here sometime soon. We're going to be going there soon. More details to follow. But, when you actually put the grievances of today compared to yesterday, yesterday's grievances were nothing. The king was a saint compared to what we have today. It's your duty to throw this off. You don't have to throw off the United States of America. You only have to throw off the corporation, the district, that was created by the Constitution. When the Constitution can be suspended due to necessity, you have no there is no protection of rights. The only protection of rights was the Declaration of Natural Law that had to do with the Declaration of Independence. That was in the Articles. That has nothing to do. Okay, the Constitution is the antithesis of the Declaration of Independence. And what we just read proves that beyond any measurable doubt. What can I say? All right, well, let's take some calls. If I'm reading this right, Richard in Alabama. Welcome to the show.
Clint, you live in Utah?
I do indeed.
Well, if you live in Utah, you probably are unfamiliar with the political problems of Alabama.
Well, I'd say that's a fair assessment. My dad is from Alabama, actually, but that doesn't mean I know much about it.
Well, of course, the schools are African majority, both the teachers and the students. Half of the babies born in Alabama are African.
Okay.
And there's a much higher rate of dependency in Alabama. And there's a general feeling that if your ideas were implemented here, there would be a bloody revolution. They simply would not put up with it. There would be an absolute bloody revolution if they put up with the ideas that you have in your mind. It just won't work in Alabama. And it became unworkable when white people became a minority in the cradle, or the maternity ward. And all of your ideas will not work. They're just impossible in this modern demographic America.
If you don't like the fact of what you're speaking, why do you still live in Alabama?
There's no place that will not suffer this fate pretty quick. All the elections around here are rigged by the Masonic Lodge. There's hardly any honest elections. And there's an extremely stilted political debate, and we just cannot face the real problems, and we want to talk about things that are theoretical and just really don't mean anything. What we ought to talk about is all this land that's going off the tax rolls and being...
Wait a minute. Now, what you're talking about is multiculturalism, basically.
Yeah.
Where do you think that is all coming from? That's not coming from local community. That is coming from the federal government that I'm talking about. All of these, of these laws.
It's past the tipping point. The immigration has got to increase because there's popular support for wide open immigration. The white people have lost the ability to impose any limits on immigration. We've just become too few in number to stop it.
What I'm telling you, sir, is that it's not that you've lost the majority. It's that you have no power whatsoever because you have a tyrannical dictatorship of a federal government where all these plans come from.
That's right. So but as long as the young people, the people who are making the babies, as long as they are happy with it, what the old white people think is irrelevant.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you're asking a question or if you're trying to just make a point. Point is well taken. I don't know if there's really an answer to what you're saying other than to form your own community somewhere else or join a community that makes you feel welcome with your own race. I don't know what to say, honestly. I mean, it's going to take you doing something. Thanks for the call, my friend.
Did you see the frightened ones? Did you hear the falling bombs? Did you ever wonder why we had to run for shelter when the promise of a brave new world unfurled beneath the clear blue sky?
All right, folks, welcome back. I got to say about the last caller, I get it. I understand. But isn't blaming another race, doesn't that mean isn't that just an excuse not to blame yourself? I mean, isn't it really? I mean, the Jews took over the Catholic Church. The Jews took over government. Government was never good in the first place. The Catholic Church was never good in the first place. So to say that some race is the problem while you're sitting doing nothing about anything, which I'm not saying that about this gentleman, but come on. There's only one person to blame. Okay, I include myself in that group of one person. It's me, and it's you. There's only one person to blame. If you don't like it, do something about it. Don't just complain. I really am not here to complain. I'm here to tell you the truth like it is. I don't get anything for this. I'm not going to get a Peabody Award. All I'm doing is delivering the truth. I mean, the truth is you're to blame as much as I am to blame. If you want action, create the action. Don't blame some race and then sit on your butt and do nothing about it. I'm sorry. It's just I'm so tired of that. Whites are still the majority in the country. Let's not fool ourselves, especially in Utah. But it's just I'm tired of this. It's an excuse, nothing else. Do something for yourself. Forget the people. Do something for yourself. I don't know what to say, man. Let's take another call. Let's go to Ray in Oregon. Welcome to the show, Ray.
Hi, Clint. I'm not here to blame anybody, but I might bust your balls just a little bit.
Please do.
Give me your definition of freedom again.
Well, it depends which dictionary you go to, but if you go down and any law dictionary especially, you'll see that freedom means basically to obey the law. Freedom is the right to be free in your actions as long as they are within the law, basically. And that's just me paraphrasing.
All right, well, I've got Black's Law 6th edition right here. Let me read this to you real quick. The state of being free, liberty, self-determination, absence of restraint, the opposite of slavery.
Keep going.
Power of acting in the character of a moral personality according to the dictates of the will without other check. Hindrance
according to the dictates of the will. Go on.
Other check. Hindrance or prohibition. Then
prohibition.
Such as may be imposed by just and necessary laws and the duties of social life.
Necessary laws. Did you get that? You see, they start out by saying, oh, freedom means being free. Then they tell you how that state of being free is subjected to law. Go look up the word free and compare it to the word freedom.
Well, I got free right here. Next page, I'm sure. Not subject to legal constraint of another.
Oh, ding, 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 ding. You didn't see that in the definition of freedom, did you?
No. All right. Well, I still. That's a fair answer. I liked it better than the first. Okay. The other thing
what I suggest is that you go to other dictionaries, especially. Remember, the Dictionary Act was Bouvier's 1856. That's online. 1828 is online, and look at the different definitions. It's really. It was one of the things that really woke me up in a big way was when I found out what the word freedom meant. Also, liberty. Remember, when you look up the word liberty, it says that in there, but you got to go look up the word liberty because there's 5 different forms of liberty. One of those is political. The same thing. Liberty means obey the law.
So how do we determine which one is in play?
Well, if you're a United States citizen, you can only have political freedom. If you're a United States citizen, you can only have political everything. Natural law is default. If you look up natural law, you'll see what was it. And when you look up the word liberty, you'll see natural liberty compared to political liberty, compared to individual liberty, compared to personal liberty. They're all different statuses, if you will, but they're all legal. The only one that's natural is natural. So if you're not a citizen of the United States and you don't claim to be subject to anything, then you're living under natural liberty or natural, you're free, basically.
So a U.S. citizen is a political, every definition in this book, in the Black's Law or Bouvier's whatever, is political only. But, of course, they don't define each one. You know, say there's 7 definitions in each word. They're not going to tell you which one is political.
No, they actually do. I look up the word liberty, especially in Bouvier's. I know it's separated, and I think it's separated in the Black's Law dictionaries as well. Liberty is a very important concept because, let's take a good example, which confuses people, is the Federal Reserve. People think the Federal Reserve is quote-unquote independent. In other words, it has liberty to do what it wants. But it only has political liberty. It can only do what Congress allows it to do. You see? It's not naturally independent. In other words, it is of government. So it's the same thing with people, or persons, if you will.
Liberty, freedom from all restraints except such as are justly imposed by law.
Anytime you see the word except, and that includes all throughout the Constitution. I mean, God, go read the 5th Amendment. Go read the 13th Amendment. Okay? 13th Amendment basically says that you're a slave. You can be a slave as long as you're...
You nailed it right there. Hit that liberty over and over again. It's right there. Freedom from all restraint except such as are imposed by
Except. Isn't it horrible? To wake up to that is the worst feeling in the world.
All right,
and that was, like I said, the most enlightening thing.
Fine, Clint. Okay, now here's the other thing you said that bothered me. You said the church came out in favor of. How did the church come out in favor of? Because, well, you just answer that, please.
Of what? I'm sorry.
Well, you were in the first hour. I tried to call you. You were on a rant, so I had to wait. But you were talking about they had this the immigration law and whatnot, and basically you said the church came out in favor of this. I don't remember what it.
E-Verify.
That's it. Yeah. How did the church come out in favor of that?
Well, you had a former congressman, as well as some of the current congressmen, that formed a sort of a committee, if you will, an unofficial committee, and they were going on all the radio stations and promoting it. And, of course, the church, I'd have to actually look back and go through all my research and all my interviews that we did on K-Talk here. It was 6:30 a.m. To give you the official answer to that. In fact, I can do that if you want and talk about it Monday. But the church was very supportive. I mean, the church is very supportive of illegal immigration, too. This is why you have huge amounts of what are they called? Is it some Samoans? I think I can't remember who the group.
They do.
Yeah.
Hold on now. You just said it again. You said the church. You know this goes back to your trivium here. You're not supporting your argument.
Oh well, the government is the church. I mean, anybody knows that here. Church, government, church. There is no difference.
Well, so.
I mean, come on, you gotta be.
Tell a Mormon that. Tell a Mormon that. Tell somebody who's good in the high in the Mormon church, or not even high, or basic in the Mormon church, one of the membership. Tell them that the church is the government, and how are you going to convince them of that? That's what I'm trying to do.
I see. Well, you caught me in a place where I don't have the research in front of me, so I wouldn't be able to give you. But I'd be glad to put it all together and revisit this.
I would like that very much, because I have a good friend who is still deep in the church. He is my brother from a long time ago, and I want to try to help him. Of course, people are going to believe what they want to believe. That is a maxim of law. It's a maxim of life. It's not law.
Sure.
But
sure.
I really want to show him he hates immigration. He sees what it's doing, and yet he wants to believe in the church. And so if I could introduce him, if I sent you an email, and what would my subject header be so you would know who it was, and that
temporary insanity 4848 at yahoo.com. It's also on my blog if you want to get it from there. I'd be glad to go through this with you. Absolutely. Thanks for the call, my friend. Sorry we missed out on Mike and Fred in Michigan, but have a good day, guys. We'll see you Monday.